Admiral De Huang stood at the observation deck of Earth's primary orbital station, watching the stars with tired eyes. He had been doing this job for 23 years now, and each year felt heavier than the last. Behind him, the communication officer's voice broke the silence. "Sir, we're receiving distress signals from colony ship Harmony. They report weapons fire, multiple hits, hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Day's jaw tightened. This was the 5th attack this year. The 5th time human ships had been targeted by alien forces. The 5th time he would have to write letters to families who would never see their loved ones again. "Who?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Vraxian Empire, sir. Their destroyer fleet. They claim it was a navigation error." Navigation error. The same excuse they always used. Day walked to the communications panel and opened the channel himself. On the screen, the Harmony's captain appeared, her face covered in blood and smoke filling the bridge behind her. "Captain Lee, what's your status?" "We're losing atmosphere fast, Admiral. 3,000 colonists on board. Most of them were sleeping when the attack started. We have maybe 500 survivors. The children's quarters took a direct hit." Her voice broke. "The children's quarters, sir." Day closed his eyes for a moment. 3,000 people. Families heading to a new world to start a better life. Now most of them were dead, floating in the cold darkness of space. "Send all available rescue ships. Get those survivors out of there." "Yes, sir." The channel closed. Day stood in silence, his hands gripping the edge of the console. Around him, the crew worked quietly, their faces showing the same anger and helplessness he felt. On the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Una Park prepared for another day at the Galactic Council. She adjusted her formal robes and checked her appearance in the mirror. Her face showed no emotion, though inside she felt the same fury that every human felt when news of the Harmony reached Earth. The council chamber was massive, filled with representatives from hundreds of alien species. Some were tall and thin, others short and wide. Some breathed oxygen like humans, others required special atmospheric suits. But they all had one thing in common. They looked down on humanity. Una took her seat in the human section, which was deliberately placed in the back of the chamber. A subtle insult that had been there since humanity joined the Council 87 years ago. She had served as ambassador for 12 years, and in that time she had filed 46 formal protests against various species for attacks, insults, and violations of human territory. Not a single protest had resulted in any meaningful action. The council session began with the usual bureaucratic matters, trade disputes between the Keltharian Republic and the Minos Collective, mining rights in the outer spiral, standard business that took hours of pointless debate. Finally, near the end of the session, Una raised her hand to speak. The council moderator, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish, acknowledged her with barely disguised annoyance. "The human representative wishes to speak. Make it brief." Una stood, her voice calm and professional. "I wish to file a formal protest against the Vraxian Empire. Yesterday, their military forces destroyed a human colony ship, resulting in the deaths of approximately 2,500 civilians, including over 800 children." The chamber filled with the alien equivalent of murmurs and whispers. At the Vraxian section, Supreme Overlord Krex leaned back in his seat, his multiple eyes showing boredom. "Ambassador Park," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "The Vraxian Empire deeply regrets this unfortunate navigation error. Our ships were conducting routine exercises in that sector. We did not detect the human vessel until it was too late. You must understand, human ships are quite small and primitive. They don't show up well on advanced sensors." Several species in the chamber made sounds that Una had learned to recognize as laughter. She kept her face neutral. "Supreme Overlord, this is the 18th time Vraxian ships have had navigation errors that resulted in human casualties. I must insist on a formal investigation." The council moderator's tendrils waved dismissively. Your protest is noted and filed. The Vraxian explanation is accepted. Next matter of business. Una sat down, her hands trembling slightly with controlled rage. Noted and filed. The same response as always. The protest would go into some database where it would be ignored forever. After the session ended, Una returned to the human embassy. Her assistant, a young man named Jay, met her at the entrance. Ambassador, you have a priority message from Earth. Encrypted, eyes only. Una went to her private office and opened the message. It was from the Secretary General of Earth's unified government. The message was short. Diplomatic option Epsilon has failed. Proceed to Directive Omega. Inform Admiral Huang. Una read the message 3 times, then deleted it. She sat back in her chair and allowed herself a small smile. Finally. After 87 years of patience, humanity was done being polite. Back on Earth, Captain Han Sol stood in the cemetery on the outskirts of New Seoul. His sister had been on the Harmony with her family. His niece was 7 years old. Was. Past tense now. He placed flowers on the memorial stone that bore their names. There were no bodies to bury. Just names carved in stone. Around him, thousands of other people did the same. The cemetery was full of memorial stones for victims of alien attacks. So many stones, so many names, so many families destroyed by species that viewed humans as insignificant insects. Han's communication device beeped. A message from Fleet Command. He was being reassigned. New orders. Report to classified location immediately. He touched his sister's name one more time, then turned and walked away. Deep beneath the Gobi Desert, in a facility that didn't officially exist, Admiral Day stepped out of a transport vehicle. The underground complex stretched for miles in every direction, carved out of solid rock and shielded from any kind of detection. Dr. G. Nam was waiting for him at the entrance, a small woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. She had been in charge of this facility for 15 years, overseeing projects that the rest of the galaxy didn't know existed. Admiral, she said with a slight bow, welcome to Project Reckoning. Show me, Day said simply. They walked through corridor after corridor, passing laboratories and testing chambers. Finally, they emerged into a massive cavern that had been converted into a shipyard. Day stopped and stared. Hundreds of warships filled the space, each one sleek and deadly, their hulls black as night. These weren't the outdated vessels that Earth showed to the galaxy. These were real warships, built with technology that was decades ahead of anything the Galactic Council possessed. How many? Day asked. In this facility alone? 347. Across all hidden facilities? 12,418. All fully operational. All ready for deployment. Day walked closer to the nearest ship. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. Humanity had been building these in secret for decades, preparing for the day when patience would run out. The weapons? Dr. G smiled. Gravity manipulation technology, kinetic missiles that move at 0.3 light speed, directed energy weapons that can punch through any known shielding, and our personal favorite, the cloaking system. We can hide an entire fleet in plain sight. And the Council has no idea? None. They think we're barely capable of basic spaceflight. They think our technology is primitive. We've been very careful to maintain that illusion. Day nodded slowly. How soon can we deploy? Give the order, Admiral. We've been ready for years. Day looked at the fleet before him, then back at Dr. G. Not yet. But soon. Very soon. In orbit around Earth, communication stations received the same message and broadcast it across human space. Every colony, every outpost, every human ship received the same simple instruction. Stand by. The time of patience is ending. The time of action is beginning. Humanity had spent 87 years being polite, being diplomatic, being patient. They had endured insults and attacks and dismissals. They had played the role of the weak newcomers, the primitive species that didn't deserve respect. But that role was about to end. The mask was about to fall, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when you mistook human politeness for weakness. The last warning was about to be delivered. The emergency meeting of Earth's unified government took place in Geneva, in a room that had witnessed countless important decisions throughout human history, but none quite like this one. General Tae Kim stood at the head of the long table, his uniform displaying the badges of 50 years of military service. Around him sat the leaders of every major nation on Earth, along with representatives from the colonies. The room was silent as he activated the holographic display. "For 87 years," Tae began, his voice steady, "we have maintained a careful facade. We have let the galaxy believe we are weak, primitive, and barely worth their attention. During that time, we have documented every single transgression against humanity." He nodded to a young woman sitting near the back. Intelligence Officer Hai Sung stood and approached the display. She looked small and unassuming, but her eyes held the weight of years of careful observation. 3,247 documented incidents, Hai said, her voice clear. Attacks on human ships, violations of our territory, trade sanctions designed to cripple our economy, insults delivered in council chambers, deaths of human civilians, all recorded, all documented, all ignored by the Galactic Council. The display showed images scrolling past, ships destroyed, colonies attacked, memorial stones with thousands of names. Each image represented human lives lost, while the galaxy laughed. The Vraxian Empire alone, Hai continued, is responsible for 1,732 deaths. They call them navigation errors or training accidents. But we have evidence that every single incident was deliberate. They attack us because they can. Because they think we're too weak to respond. The president of the unified government, an elderly man named Secretary General Park, spoke quietly. "Show them the latest incident." The display changed to show footage from the Harmony's final moments. The bridge camera had captured everything. The moment the Vraxian weapons hit, the screams, the emergency doors sealing off sections full of people, the children's quarters lit up by weapons fire. Several people in the room looked away. Others watched with tears streaming down their faces. Everyone had lost someone to alien aggression over the years. Everyone had attended funerals for victims of species that viewed humans as insignificant. "Enough," Secretary General Park said softly. "We have all seen enough. The question before us now is simple. Do we continue to be polite, or do we respond?" General Tae spoke again. "If we respond, it will change everything. The galaxy will learn the truth about human capabilities. We can never go back to being underestimated. This decision, once made, is permanent." "What are our chances?" someone asked. "If it comes to war, can we win?" Tae looked at the questioner. "Win? Madam President, we can sweep them aside like insects. Our technology is generations ahead of theirs. Our fleet outnumbers anything they have. Our weapons can destroy their strongest ships in seconds. The question isn't whether we can win. The question is whether we should reveal our true strength." The room erupted in discussion. Some argued for caution, others demanded immediate action. The debate went on for hours, voices rising and falling, arguments made and countered. Finally, Secretary General Park raised his hand for silence. "Let us vote. All in favor of ending our policy of strategic weakness and responding to alien aggression with our full capabilities?" Every single hand went up. Every single one. "Then it is decided," Park said. "Ambassador Yuna will deliver our ultimatum. General Tae, prepare our forces. Admiral Day, activate protocol reckoning. We tried being polite. Now we stop pretending. 3 days later, the Galactic Council convened for a special session. Word had spread that the human ambassador had requested time to make an important announcement. Most species viewed this with amusement. What could the primitive humans possibly have to say that mattered? Ambassador Yuna walked into the chamber, and immediately people noticed something different. She wore no diplomatic robes. Instead, she wore a simple black suit. Her face showed no emotion. Her eyes were cold as ice. She walked to the center of the chamber, not to her assigned seat in the back. The council moderator started to object, but something in Yuna's expression made him hesitate. "Members of the Galactic Council," Yuna began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "For 87 years, humanity has sought peace. We have chosen diplomacy over conflict. We have filed protests instead of launching attacks. We have been patient, polite, and accommodating." Supreme Overlord Krex laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the walls. Yes, very noble. Is this another protest about navigation errors? We're very sorry about your little colony ship. These accidents happen. Yuna turned to look at him directly. 3,247 incidents, 1,732 human deaths caused by Vraxian forces alone. These are not accidents. These are deliberate attacks against a species you believe is too weak to respond. The chamber grew quieter. Something in Yuna's tone was different. This wasn't the patient, diplomatic human they were used to. "The Vraxian Empire has issued an ultimatum," Yuna continued. "You demand that humanity surrender 5 star systems or face what you call corrective measures. You believe you can take what you want from us because we have never fought back. You mistake our patience for weakness. You mistake our diplomacy for fear." She paused, looking around the chamber at the hundreds of alien species watching her. "I am here to deliver Earth's response. You have 72 hours to withdraw all military forces from human space. You will issue formal reparations for every human life lost to alien aggression. You will recognize human sovereignty over all territories we claim. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is a warning." The chamber exploded in noise, laughter, outrage, disbelief. Supreme Overlord Krex stood, his multiple arms gesturing dramatically. "A warning! From humans? This is adorable! You have perhaps 200 outdated ships. We have thousands. You have no powerful weapons. You have no advanced technology. And you dare to threaten the Vraxian Empire?" Yuna's expression didn't change. "We tried being polite. You mistook it for weakness. You have 72 hours. I suggest you use them wisely." She turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the council erupted in chaos. Most species were laughing. Some were angry at the human arrogance. A few, the older and wiser species, looked worried. They had noticed something in the human ambassador's eyes, something that made them uneasy. As Yuna left the council building, she activated her communication device. "Ambassador parked to Fleet Command. Message delivered. They're not taking it seriously." Admiral Day's voice came back, calm and cold. "Expected. Proceed with evacuation protocol." Within hours, every human diplomatic vessel in alien space began emergency evacuations. Human embassies shut down. Human traders packed up and left alien ports. Human students at alien universities boarded ships and departed. Human tourists cut their vacations short and headed home. The speed and coordination surprised many species. It was as if humanity had been planning this for years, which of course they had. The Galactic News Network covered the evacuations with a mix of confusion and mockery. "Human tantrum continues," read one headline. "Primitive species throws diplomatic fit," read another. Entertainment shows made jokes about scared humans running home to their little planet. On the 3rd day, with only hours remaining before the deadline, Supreme Overlord Krex addressed his military commanders. "The humans think they can threaten us," he said, his voice full of contempt. "We will teach them a lesson they will never forget. Assemble the punishment fleet. 500 ships. We will jump to their home system and show them what happens when insects try to sting giants." His commanders cheered. The Vraxian punishment fleet began to assemble. 500 warships, each one massive and heavily armed, the largest military force ever sent against humanity. On Earth, Admiral Day watched the Vraxian fleet gathering. Around him, his command staff monitored screens showing data from across human space. "They're actually doing it," someone said with disbelief. "They're sending a fleet to attack Earth." "Did we expect anything else?" Day replied calmly. "They don't know any better. To them, we're still the weak species that filed protests instead of fighting back." "When do we show them the truth?" Day checked the countdown timer. 42 minutes until the 72-hour deadline expired. "Soon, let them come close. Let them think they're about to win an easy victory. Then we'll show them what humanity has been hiding." In her quarters on the orbital station, Ambassador Yuna changed out of her diplomatic suit and into something more practical. She opened a secure channel to Secretary General Park. "They ignored the warning," she said. "We knew they would," Park replied. "The galaxy has spent nearly a century learning to dismiss humanity. They can't change their thinking in 72 hours. But they will learn. Are you ready?" "I am." "Then let's teach them what happens when you push too far." Across human space, millions of people watched the countdown timer. They had all been briefed. They all knew what was coming. Some felt fear. Some felt excitement. All felt a grim satisfaction that finally, after so many years of swallowing insults and mourning the dead, humanity was done being polite. The timer reached 0. The Vraxian punishment fleet moved through space in a massive formation, 500 warships arranged in perfect attack patterns. On the flagship, Supreme Overlord Krex watched the viewscreen with satisfaction. Soon the human home system would come into view, and then the real lesson would begin. "How long until we reach the Sol system?" he asked his navigation officer. 30 minutes, Supreme Overlord. We should detect their defensive fleet any moment now." Krex settled back in his command throne. "Ready all weapons. I want this to be quick. Destroy their orbital stations first, then their ships. Leave their planet intact. They will need somewhere to live when they become our servants." His bridge crew laughed. The idea of humans as servants was amusing. They were so small and weak, barely useful for anything. 25 minutes later, alarms began to sound across the Vraxian fleet. "Sir, we're detecting energy signatures ahead, multiple contacts." "Their defense fleet?" Krex asked. "How many ships?" The sensor officer stared at his screens, his multiple eyes widening. "Sir, I'm reading thousands of contacts. That can't be right. The humans only have a few hundred ships total." Obviously a sensor malfunction. Recalibrate and scan again. The officer worked frantically at his console. "Sir, recalibration complete. I'm reading 12,418 distinct energy signatures, all military grade, all active." The bridge went silent. 12,000 ships? That was impossible. The humans barely had any military presence at all. "Show me," Krex demanded. The main view screen changed to show the space ahead of them. For a moment, there was nothing but empty space and distant stars. Then, like ghosts materializing from nowhere, ships began to appear. Hundreds, then thousands of them, their hulls black as night, their weapons already glowing with power. The Vraxian punishment fleet suddenly looked very small. "They were cloaked," someone whispered. "They have cloaking technology." "Impossible," Krex said, but his voice lacked confidence. "The humans don't have that kind of technology." On Earth's primary orbital command station, Admiral Day watched the Vraxian fleet's approach with cold satisfaction. Around him, holographic displays showed every ship in both fleets, every weapon system, every tactical option. Fleet positions confirmed, reported his tactical officer. All 12,000 ships are in formation. Weapons charged, shields at maximum. We're ready, sir. Good, Day said quietly. Captain Han, you have command of the Retribution. Move your ship to the front. On the bridge of the warship Retribution, Captain Han Sol felt his heart pounding. This was the ship he had requested. This was the moment he had waited for. He thought of his sister, his niece, all the people who had died while humanity stayed quiet. Move us forward, he ordered. Full speed. Take us right to the center of their formation. The Retribution surged ahead, leaving the main human fleet behind. It was a single ship against 500, but Han wasn't worried. This ship alone had enough firepower to destroy the entire Vraxian fleet. He opened a communication channel directly to the Vraxian flagship. Supreme Overlord Krex's face appeared on the screen, showing clear confusion and growing fear. I am Captain Han Sol of Earth Defense Fleet, Han said, his voice steady. You had 72 hours to withdraw from human space. You chose instead to attack. You made the wrong choice. You're bluffing, Krex replied, but he didn't sound certain. You can't possibly have this many ships. This is some kind of trick. No trick, Han said. For 87 years, humanity chose to hide our true capabilities. We wanted to observe the galaxy, to understand how things worked before revealing ourselves. You mistook our patience for weakness. You murdered our people and laughed about it. Now you will learn what happens when you push humans too far. This is your last chance. Turn your ships around and leave now, or you don't leave at all. Krex's face twisted with rage. You dare! You insects dare to threaten me! Open fire! Destroy that ship! The Vraxian flagship and 50 other ships fired their weapons at the Retribution. Beams of energy and kinetic projectiles filled space, all converging on Han's ship. The weapons hit the Retribution's shields and dissipated like water hitting a rock. The ship didn't even shake. Our turn, Han said quietly. Fire! The Retribution's main weapons came online. Gravity wells formed around Vraxian ships, crushing them like tin cans. Directed energy beams, far more powerful than anything the Vraxians possessed, sliced through hulls and shields as if they weren't there. Kinetic missiles moving at 30% of light speed hit their targets before the Vraxians even saw them coming. In 15 seconds, 50 Vraxian ships were destroyed. All ships advance, Admiral Day ordered from Earth. Show them what humanity can do. The human fleet moved forward like a tidal wave of destruction. Ships that had been hiding in the asteroid belt, on the moons of Mars and Jupiter, in the rings of Saturn, all converged on the Vraxian fleet. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 11 minutes. Human weapons tore through Vraxian shields like they didn't exist. Human ships dodged and weaved with impossible precision, guided by AI systems and targeting computers that were generations ahead of anything the galaxy had seen. Human missiles struck with perfect accuracy, destroying command centers and weapon systems with surgical precision. The Vraxians tried to fight back, but their weapons were useless. Their ships were too slow. Their technology was too primitive. They had come expecting to crush insects and found themselves facing dragons. Supreme Overlord Krex watched in horror as his fleet was systematically destroyed. Ships exploded all around him. Distress calls filled the communication channels. His officers were screaming orders that no one could follow. "Retreat!" he finally shouted. "All ships, retreat immediately!" But there was no retreat. Human ships surrounded them completely. Every escape route was blocked. A communication request came from one of the human ships. Krex accepted it, his hands shaking. Captain Han Sol's face appeared on the screen again. Behind him, Krex could see the human bridge crew working calmly, efficiently. They weren't even breathing hard. This wasn't a difficult battle for them. This was just another day's work. "I told you," Han said. You had 72 hours. You chose to attack. Now face the consequences. Please, Krex said, his pride completely gone. We surrender. Please stop. Surrender noted, Han replied coldly. It changes nothing. You had 72 hours. The communication cut off. The attack continued. When it was over, only one Vraxian ship remained intact, the flagship. Han had ordered his weapons officers to disable it carefully, destroying its weapons and engines, but leaving life support functioning. He wanted survivors. He wanted witnesses. Admiral Day's face appeared on every functional screen in the Vraxian flagship. Supreme Overlord Krex, you will return to Vraxian space. You will tell your empire what happened here today. You will explain that humanity is done being patient. And you will remember that you had 72 hours. On Earth, people watched the battle on every available screen. They had watched human ships, ships they never knew existed, destroy a force that should have been overwhelming. They had watched decades of patience pay off in 11 minutes of perfect execution. In bars and homes and gathering places across human space, people cheered. They cried. They hugged each other. Finally, after so many years of swallowing insults and burying the dead, humanity had shown the galaxy what it really was. Dr. G. Nam stood in the secret facility beneath the Gobi Desert, watching the battle data stream across her screens. Every weapon had performed perfectly. Every system had worked exactly as designed. Years of secret research and development had just proven their worth. She thought about all the scientists who had worked on these projects, who had spent their entire careers in secret, building weapons and ships that the world never knew about. Today, their work had saved humanity from becoming slaves to an arrogant empire. Today, the galaxy had learned that humans were not weak. In the Galactic Council chambers, emergency sessions were being held. News of the battle had spread fast. Video footage was everywhere, ships appearing from nowhere, weapons that shouldn't exist, a human fleet that dwarfed anything the galaxy knew about. Species that had laughed at the human ultimatum 72 hours ago were now very, very quiet. Species that had attacked human ships and colonies were suddenly worried. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive were frantically reassessing everything they thought they knew. Ambassador Yuna watched the council session from her office. She didn't bother attending in person. They didn't deserve her presence. Her communication device beeped. It was Admiral Day. "The battle is over," he said. "We let one ship escape to carry the message. What's the council's reaction?" "Panic," Yuna replied with a small smile. "Absolute panic. They're trying to figure out how we hid this much military power for 87 years. They're scared, Admiral. For the first time since we joined the council, they're actually scared of us." "Good," Day said. "Fear is the beginning of respect. But we're not done. Fleet Commander Wu is ready to move on the Vraxian home systems. We're going to finish this." "The galaxy is watching," Yuna warned. "Everything we do now will define how they see us forever." "Let them watch," Day replied. "Let them see what happens when you attack humanity. Let them see what happens when you ignore our warnings. We gave them 72 hours. They chose war. Now they get war." The communication ended. Yuna sat back in her chair and looked out at the alien city beyond her window. A city full of species that had treated humans as less than equals for nearly a century. That era was over. Humanity had stopped pretending to be weak. Now, the real work would begin. Fleet Commander Wu Che stood on the bridge of the Valiant, one of humanity's largest warships. Around him, the 7th Fleet waited in formation, 2,000 ships ready to jump into Vraxian space. This was the fleet he had trained for years, the fleet that was about to show the galaxy what real military power looked like. "All ships report ready, sir," his communications officer reported. Jump coordinates locked. Awaiting your orders. Wu looked at the tactical display. The Vraxian Empire controlled 63 star systems. They had military bases in 47 of them. Intelligence reports, gathered over decades by human observers, who everyone thought were just merchants and tourists, showed exactly where every Vraxian military installation was located. "Officer Na, are your strike teams in position?" Wu asked. From another ship in the fleet, Officer Na Rin's voice came through clear and professional. "All 47 teams ready, sir. We have targets locked for every major Vraxian installation. We can hit them all simultaneously." Narin was a tactical genius, a woman who could coordinate complex operations across multiple star systems. She had been planning this operation for 3 years, working out every detail, every timing sequence, every possible complication. "Then let's begin," Wu said. "All ships, execute jump. Take us deep into Vraxian space." The 7th Fleet vanished from human territory and reappeared in the heart of the Vraxian Empire. Not at the borders where they would be expected, not in some neutral zone where they could be intercepted. They jumped directly into the core systems, bypassing all outer defenses completely. The Vraxian military commanders were caught completely by surprise. Their sensors suddenly showed 2,000 human ships inside their territory. Ships that had somehow jumped past every defensive line, every early warning system. "How did they get past our defenses?" one commander shouted. "That's impossible!" But it wasn't impossible. Human FTL technology, developed in secret for decades, was 3 generations ahead of anything the Galactic Council used. Human ships could calculate jump coordinates with precision the Vraxians couldn't imagine. They could appear exactly where they wanted, when they wanted. "All strike teams, execute," Na Rin ordered. Across 47 star systems, human ships struck Vraxian military bases simultaneously. The attacks were surgical, precise. Human weapons destroyed command centers, weapons manufacturing plants, ship construction yards, and fuel depots. They avoided civilian targets completely, but military installations were turned into wreckage in minutes. The Vraxian military tried to respond, but their communications were jammed, their command structure was shattered, and their ships couldn't catch the human vessels that moved with impossible speed and agility. In the Vraxian home system, Fleet Commander Wu brought his fleet into orbit around the capital planet. The orbital defense network, massive weapons platforms that had protected the Vraxian homeworld for centuries, opened fire immediately. Captain Han Sol, now commanding a strike squadron, led his ships toward the platforms. "Remember," he said to his pilots, "we disable. We don't destroy. We want these platforms intact. Just take out their weapons and power systems." The human ships danced through the defensive fire like it was nothing. Their shields absorbed hits that would have destroyed other vessels. Their targeting computers identified weak points in the platforms and hit them with perfect accuracy. In 23 minutes, the Vraxian homeworld's entire orbital defense network was disabled. Not destroyed, disabled. Every platform was still there, but they couldn't fire, couldn't move, couldn't do anything except drift in orbit as proof of human superiority. On the planet below, in the massive palace that served as Supreme Overlord Krex's residence, alarm bells rang continuously. Military advisors ran back and forth shouting contradictory orders. Krex sat on his throne, staring at screens showing human ships destroying his empire's military capability with casual ease. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "They're humans. They're weak. They're primitive." His chief military advisor, a veteran of 100 campaigns, spoke quietly. "They were never weak, Supreme Overlord. They were hiding, watching, learning, waiting for us to push them too far. And now we're paying the price." A communication request came from the human fleet. Krex wanted to refuse it, but what was the point? He accepted. Fleet Commander Wu's face appeared on the screen. He looked calm, professional, and completely in control. Supreme Overlord Krex, I am Fleet Commander Wu Che of Earth's 7th Fleet. We have disabled your military capabilities across 47 systems. Your orbital defenses are offline. Your fleet is scattered and broken. We can destroy your homeworld right now if we choose to. What do you want? Krex asked, his voice defeated. Unconditional surrender. Immediate cessation of all military operations. Withdrawal of all Vraxian forces from disputed territories. And reparations for every human life lost to Vraxian aggression. You will sign these terms within 1 hour, or we will continue our operations until your empire no longer exists. I surrender, Krex said immediately. I accept all terms. Surrender noted, Wu replied coldly. It changes nothing. You had 72 hours to avoid this. You chose war. Now you face the consequences. The communication ended. Krex sat in his throne, broken and defeated. His empire, built over centuries, had been reduced to rubble in less than a day. And it was all because he had underestimated the humans, had thought their patience meant weakness. Across the galaxy, other species watched in real time as the human fleet systematically dismantled the Vraxian military. News channels showed footage of human ships moving with impossible precision. Analysis programs tried to calculate the technology gap and came back with numbers that seemed impossible. In the Galactic Council chambers, an emergency session had been called. Every species representative was present, and for the first time in the Council's history, they were genuinely frightened. Ambassador Yuna entered the chamber, and this time, everyone fell silent. No one laughed. No one made jokes. She walked to the center of the chamber, the same place she had stood when delivering humanity's ultimatum. For 87 years, she began, her voice echoing in the silent chamber. Humanity has been a member of this council. For 87 years, we have filed protests about attacks, violations, and insults. For 87 years, those protests were ignored. We were dismissed as primitive, weak, and insignificant. She paused, looking around at the representatives. Some couldn't meet her eyes. The truth is that humanity has been spacefaring for 237 years. When we made contact with the Galactic Council 87 years ago, we had already been exploring the galaxy for a century and a half. We deliberately presented ourselves as primitive newcomers because we wanted to observe galactic civilization before revealing our true capabilities. Murmurs filled the chamber. 237 years? That meant humans had been traveling the stars long before many species currently in the Council. During those 87 years of observation, Yuna continued, we learned that the galaxy operates on strength. Species that are strong are respected. Species that are weak are exploited. So we waited, we built, we prepared, and we documented every single transgression against us. 3,247 incidents, thousands of human lives lost, all while we pretended to be weak and filed protests that went nowhere. But we never forgot, and now the bill comes due. The Vraxian Empire is being held accountable for their actions. Their military has been neutralized. Their ability to threaten anyone is gone. But they are not alone in their guilt. Dozens of species in this chamber have attacked human ships, violated human territory, or supported those who did. The chamber erupted in protests and denials. Yuna waited for silence, and when it didn't come naturally, she simply raised her voice. We have evidence of everything, every attack, every violation, every insult, and we will be presenting formal demands for reparations from every guilty party. You have 1 week to respond. Failure to comply will result in the same treatment the Vraxian Empire is currently receiving. But, she continued, her voice softening slightly, humanity is not interested in conquest or domination. We are interested in justice and respect. Species that acknowledge their actions and make proper reparations will face no further consequences. Species that cooperate in reforming the Council's laws to prevent future aggression will be welcomed as allies. The choice is yours. We tried diplomacy for 87 years. We tried patience. We tried being polite. When that didn't work, we stopped pretending. But we are not monsters. We are not conquerors. We simply demand to be treated as equals. The Council moderator, the floating jellyfish creature that had dismissed human protests for so many years, spoke carefully. Ambassador Park, what assurances can you give the Council that humanity won't use its obvious military superiority to dominate the galaxy? Yuna looked at him with cold eyes. The same assurances you gave us when we were weak and defenseless, which is to say, none. You will have to trust us, just as you expected us to trust you. The difference is that we actually keep our word. Back in human space, people celebrated. Streets were filled with crowds cheering and singing, not because humanity had won a war, but because they had finally been shown respect. Because they no longer had to hide their strength or accept insults in silence. Captain Han Sol stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching displays showing the Vraxian Empire's military bases burning. He thought of his sister again, his niece, all the people who had died. This victory wouldn't bring them back, but it ensured that no more humans would die because the galaxy thought they were weak. Dr. Jinam received messages from scientists across human space, congratulating her on the success of weapons and ships that had been built in secret for decades. Some of those scientists had never seen their work used. They had spent entire careers building things in hidden facilities, trusting that someday their work would matter. Today, it had mattered more than they could have imagined. General Tae Kim stood in the command center on Earth, watching tactical displays showing human fleets across the galaxy. The 1st through 11th fleets were all on standby, ready to deploy if any other species decided to test humanity's resolve. "Sir," an aide said, "we're receiving surrender requests from 6 other species. They're offering reparations and requesting that we don't attack their territories." "Good," Tae replied. "Accept their surrenders, but keep the fleets on alert. Some species might still be foolish enough to challenge us." The galaxy was learning. Some were learning faster than others, but everyone was learning the same lesson. Humanity was done being underestimated. 3 weeks had passed since the 72-hour deadline expired. 3 weeks since humanity had stopped pretending to be weak. The galaxy had changed in ways that would never be undone. In the ruins of the Vraxian Empire's military infrastructure, General Tae Kim supervised the reconstruction. Not the reconstruction of Vraxian military power, but the rebuilding of civilian facilities that had been damaged in the fighting. Human engineers worked alongside Vraxian civilians, repairing hospitals, schools, and power stations. "I don't understand," a young Vraxian worker said to one of the human engineers. "You destroyed our military. Why are you helping us rebuild?" The human engineer, a woman named Young Soo, adjusted her tool belt and smiled. "Because we're not monsters. Your military attacked us. Your leaders made terrible choices. But that doesn't mean your people should suffer. We wanted justice, not genocide." Across Vraxian space, similar scenes played out. Human medical ships provided aid to wounded Vraxian soldiers. Human supply ships brought food and medicine to planets where military bases had disrupted local economies. Human diplomatic teams negotiated fair reparation payments that wouldn't destroy the Vraxian economy. The galaxy watched, confused. They had expected humans to conquer, to dominate, to rule. Instead, humans were healing. In the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Yuna addressed a session that had the highest attendance in Council history. Every species wanted to hear what humanity would demand now that they held overwhelming military power. "The old Council laws were designed to protect the strong," Yuna said. Species with powerful militaries could attack weaker species with minimal consequences. Protests were filed and ignored. Justice was rare. That era is over. She activated a holographic display showing a document. This is the new Protection Accord. It establishes clear laws against military aggression, creates an independent enforcement agency, and ensures that all species, regardless of military strength, have equal rights and protections. Any species that attacks another will face immediate intervention from the enforcement agency. No more navigation errors. No more ignored protests. No more justice delayed until it becomes justice denied. A representative from the Keltharian Republic stood. And who will control this enforcement agency? Will it be humanity, using your military superiority to impose your will on the galaxy? No, Una replied. The enforcement agency will be controlled by a council of representatives from small and medium-sized species, the species that have been victims of aggression for too long. Humanity will provide military support if requested, but we won't control the agency. We believe those who have suffered from injustice are best positioned to prevent future injustice. The chamber filled with surprised murmurs. This wasn't what anyone had expected. Another representative stood, this one from a small species that had been bullied by larger empires for generations. Why should we trust you? You hid your strength for 87 years. You could be hiding more. You could be planning to control us all. Una nodded. You shouldn't trust us blindly. Trust should be earned. But consider this. We could have conquered the Vraxian Empire completely. We could have taken their territory, enslaved their population, imposed our rule. We didn't. We disabled their military and then helped them rebuild. We could attack any species in this chamber right now. We won't. Not unless we're attacked first. Actions speak louder than words. Judge us by what we do, not by what we promise. The vote on the new Protection Accord took 3 days. In the end, it passed with overwhelming support. Species that had been victims of aggression for centuries finally had legal protection. Species that had been aggressors found themselves facing real consequences for the first time. On Earth, Admiral De Huang walked through a memorial park where thousands of names were carved in stone, names of people killed by alien aggression over the years. He placed flowers at his niece's memorial, a little girl who had died when a trading station was attacked. We did it, he said softly to the stone. We made sure it won't happen to others. We made sure your death meant something. Captain J. Sun, newly promoted to head of frontier defense, stood on a space station at the edge of human territory. His fleet, a mix of the powerful warships and defensive platforms, ensured that human space was now the safest region in the galaxy. Sir, we have multiple requests from other species asking to establish colonies near our borders, his communications officer reported. They say they feel safer near human-protected space. Jay smiled. Grant the requests, but make sure they understand the rules. No aggression, no territorial disputes. Everyone plays nice, or they deal with us. In the diplomatic quarter of the Galactic Council's main station, a young human diplomat named Su Min met with representatives from 5 smaller species. They wanted to discuss forming an alliance with Earth. We've spent centuries being pushed around by the big empires, one representative explained. Now, for the first time, we have protection. We want to make it formal. We want Earth as an ally. Su Min, trained in the new diplomatic approach that combined firmness with fairness, listened carefully. An alliance means responsibilities on both sides. We'll protect you from aggression, but you have to follow the same rules we do. No attacking others, no territorial grabs, no exploitation of weaker species. Can you agree to that? All 5 representatives agreed immediately. Over the following weeks, 23 species requested formal alliances with Earth. The network of protection grew, and with it, a new era of galactic peace. On a remote planet in what had been Vraxian territory, Supreme Overlord Krex lived in a small house, stripped of his title and power. The Vraxian people had removed him from office, angry at the leader who had brought disaster to their empire. He sat on his porch, watching the sunset, when a human shuttle landed nearby. Admiral Day Huang stepped out and walked over. "Why are you here?" Krex asked bitterly. "Come to gloat?" "No," Day replied, sitting down on the porch steps. "I came to make sure you understand something. We didn't destroy your empire because we enjoyed it. We did it because you gave us no choice. You attacked us. You killed our people. You ignored our warnings." "I know," Krex said quietly. "I was arrogant. I thought humans were weak. I thought we could do whatever we wanted. I was wrong." "Yes, you were. But here's the thing. Your people aren't paying for your mistakes. We made sure of that. Vraxian civilians are safe. Their economy is recovering. Their colonies are protected. We punished the military that attacked us, but we're helping everyone else rebuild." "Why?" Krex asked. "You could have destroyed us completely." "Because that's not who we are," Day replied. "We're strong enough to destroy, but we're wise enough not to. That's the difference between us and you. You used your strength to bully. We use ours to protect." Day stood to leave. "You have a chance now. Use it to become better. Teach your people that strength without wisdom is just violence. Maybe the Vraxian Empire can rise again, but this time as a force for good instead of aggression." Back on Earth, in the command center, General Tae Kim reviewed reports from across human space. Every colony was secure. Every outpost was protected. Trade routes were safe. For the first time in 87 years, no human ships had been attacked. "General," an aide said, "we have a request from the Galactic Council. They want to know if Earth would be interested in joining the Security Command. It would give us authority to respond to threats across the galaxy." Tay considered this carefully. "Tell them we'll accept, but only if the Security Command is reformed. We want clear rules, transparent operations, and accountability. We're not interested in becoming the galaxy's police force unless everyone agrees on what laws we're enforcing." In her office, Ambassador Yuna reviewed the changes to the Galactic Council over the past 3 weeks. New laws, new enforcement mechanisms, new respect for smaller species, new consequences for aggression. A message came from Secretary General Park. "You've done well, Ambassador. The galaxy is safer now than it's been in centuries. But I have to ask, was it worth it? Was revealing our strength worth ending 87 years of careful observation?" Yuna thought about the question. She thought about all the people who had died, all the protests that had been ignored, all the years of swallowing insults. "Yes," she replied. "It was worth it. We learned what we needed to learn. We documented everything we needed to document. And we proved that patience has limits. The galaxy needed to learn that humans can be diplomatic, but we're not weak. We can be patient, but we're not pushovers. We tried being polite. When that didn't work, we stopped pretending. And now? Now we maintain the peace. We protect those who need protection. We enforce the laws fairly. And we make sure that no one ever again mistakes human kindness for weakness." On the outskirts of the galaxy, at a memorial station built to honor all victims of aggression, humans and aliens gathered for a dedication ceremony. The station held the names of every being killed in unjust attacks over the past 2 centuries. Human names, Vraxian names, names from hundreds of species. Captain Han Sol stood before his sister's name, finally at peace. The galaxy had changed. It would never be perfect, but it was better, and those who had not died in vain. In secret facilities across human space, Dr. Ji Nam and her teams continued their work. They weren't building new weapons. Instead, they were developing technologies for exploration, for healing, for building. The era of hiding was over. The era of preparation for war was over. Now came the era of building a better galaxy. Admiral Day stood on Earth's orbital station one last time, looking out at the stars. Fleet Commander Wu joined him, along with Captains Han Sol and Jae Sun. "Do you think they'll ever challenge us again?" Wu asked. "Maybe," Day replied. "Some species never learn, but most will remember. They'll remember what happened when humans gave a warning and were ignored. They'll remember what happened when the polite species stopped being polite." "We changed the galaxy," Han said quietly. "We did," Day agreed. "And now we have to maintain that change. We have to prove that we meant what we said. We have to show that our strength is used for protection, not conquest." "How long do we keep our fleets on alert?" Jay asked. "Forever," Day replied. "Or until the galaxy proves it doesn't need us to. We became strong to protect ourselves. Now we stay strong to protect everyone. That's the responsibility that comes with power." Far away in the Galactic Council chambers, a new document was filed in the official records. It was titled, "Revised First Contact Protocol, Addendum Regarding Humanity." It outlined lessons learned from 87 years of misunderstanding human nature. The first line read, "Do not mistake human diplomacy for weakness." The last line read, "When humans give a warning, they mean it." And throughout the galaxy, species large and small learned a truth that would shape interstellar relations for centuries to come. Humanity had tried being polite. When that didn't work, they stopped pretending. And the galaxy became a safer place because of it. Earth's last warning had become the galaxy's first lesson in respecting all species, regardless of their apparent strength. The era of bullying the weak was over. The era of justice had begun. And it all started because humanity gave one simple message: stop attacking or we'll stop pretending to be polite. The galaxy had chosen not to stop, so humanity stopped pretending. And everyone learned what real strength looked like when guided by wisdom instead of arrogance.